Long ago during the Ming Dynasty in China, about the year 1372, far, far west into the desert, they built the Jiayuguan Great Wall Fortress. Those who had traveled the Silk Road, which was a trade route, they knew that they were safe when they came to the fortress. And when they originally decided to build the fortress, the designer, a mathematical genius named Yi, he boasted that his calculations were so precise that it would take exactly 99,999 bricks to complete the fortress. The supervisor was a bit skeptical and he didn't really believe Yi. And at the end of the build, one brick remained. And the supervisor, he laughed. But this was only until Yi decided to instruct the workers to place this one remaining brick way up on a ledge. And this wall was already completed. So to place the brick all the way up on a ledge, way out of the reach of anybody. And he told the supervisor that this last brick was so vital, so important for the stabilization of the fortress. And not only that, for the success of the trade route. And that brick remains until this day. Now that's what I call determination. I'm Pastor Jonno. Now, has this ever happened to you? You were sitting in a reading circle and the teacher, the instructor, assigned a section of the book to read out loud. It could have been poetry, it could have been a novel, it could have been a passage of scripture. Well, I've never been officially tested for dyslexia, but the bits of information that I have researched about dyslexia point to me being a candidate for having dyslexia. So I was the kid in the circle who would read really slowly. And I'm still that kid, a little bit older now, who would rather have somebody else do all the reading. And quite frankly, I just get embarrassed because sometimes as I'm reading, I may stammer or stutter, and the words don't align as they should. So I had to make a choice. I had to make a judgment call. I had to make a decision, a determination. And that word determination, it's a noun, and it means the firmness of purpose, resoluteness. Another definition, the process of establishing something exactly by calculation or research, like Yi and the calculation for the walls, for the fortress. It could also mean a judicial decision settling and ending the controversy in legal terms. I like this one. A firm or fixed intention to achieve a desired end. And I think about God in that way. God is firm or fixed in his intentions to achieve a desired end. God is a God who never changes. And this is true. You see, he never changes, but he is ever revealing. See, the word determination appears only one time in the King James Version of the Bible. And it was because of the rebelliousness of the Jews in Jerusalem and even the surrounding nations that God said this of Jerusalem. He said, and this is in Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8. He says this, "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey," P-R-E-Y, pray. "For my determination is to gather the nations, and that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them my indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with fire of my jealousy." Now, the word determination, it also appears in the book of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah He was this guy that wanted to rebuild the temple walls. 70 years earlier, the walls around Jerusalem were torn down. They were destroyed. And he wanted to rebuild the temple walls. So Nehemiah, as he is endeavoring to rebuild the walls, the haters came around. The people of the surrounding areas, they came and they were trying to disrupt the build. But this is what Nehemiah says, and this is in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 9. In the New Living Translation, it says this: they were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continue the work with even greater determination. Now that word, determination, in Hebrew is mishpat, which translates most often and best as judgment, or according to the manner in which that judgment leads into action. Determination. You see, I wanted to become a better reader, but I really didn't like to read. Reading for me was like building a wall with faulty bricks. I remember sitting in a Bible study and the teacher gave out the passage that we were supposed to read. And, as we're sitting there, the teacher basically said, okay, you read verse 1, you read verse 2, you read verse 3, and then it would come to me and I would read verse 4. And so she says, we're going to read Psalm 100. And so as we're sitting in this formation, this circle, and I knew I was going to be the fourth one to read, rather than listening to verses 1, 2, and 3 read by the other children there, instead, I rehearsed verse 4 in my head a few times so that when it was my turn to read, I could do it flawlessly. So I didn't pay attention to make a joyful noise to the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that the Lord, he's God. It's he that's made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. I ignored all that. And it finally got to me, and I read out loud because I had rehearsed it. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. And then I was done. I didn't even wait for the last verse to go by. I was determined to read my part aloud without stammering, without stopping, without feeling embarrassed or humiliated. And see, there's an old adage that says this: practice makes perfect. And I changed that up a bit because I believe that we're not going to be perfected until we actually reach heaven. So I changed it up. I say this: practice makes progress. You see, we can progress towards something through determination. Other things came a bit more naturally than reading. So I gravitated towards those other things. I gravitated towards music because it came naturally. I gravitated towards drawing, artwork, designing because it came naturally, it came easy. I found I really like to cook. I love to cook. And I'm actually pretty good, so I'm told. I discovered I really enjoy writing, but not so much reading. You see, I stumbled and fell short in school when it came to reading. I guess I was too embarrassed to let somebody know that I had a problem. I struggled alone. I suffered in silence. I struggled all throughout middle school. I somehow made it through high school, but yet my walls were crumbling. The struggle continued into college, and after a while, I considered myself to be a poor student. I made an unfair comparison between myself and others. As a matter of fact, my brother and sister had just graduated college a few years earlier, and I ended up dropping out of college. And it wasn't until someone prayed for me, and that prayer affirmed what I had been feeling on the inside. It was a calling by God to use my gifts, to use my talents, my strengths, and my abilities for Him. A determination began to grow on the inside of me to make music. So I recorded a couple of albums. A determination within me drove me to create graphics. A determination inspired me to create in the kitchen. A determination within compelled me to go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree, and I did so with honors. A determination led me to even go back after finishing a bachelor's, a few years later, to go back and finish a master's degree. And I did so with a 4.0. That's determination. I came to recognize that all of this was only made possible because of one thing, and that one thing is the grace of God. God gives us a grace for determination. And I realized and I embraced the truth that all of the gifting, all of the talents, all of the abilities, all of my desires, and even that determination, it all came from God. And I was created by Him to do all those things and more, to be all of those things and more by God's grace. You see, Apostle Paul, he wrote these words. He says this, for we are God's handiwork, or workmanship, or masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. That's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. And I want to share the definition for the word grace with you. The word grace, it is this. Grace is the gift of divine ability beyond human capability to accomplish God things through God methods by God's power unto God's glory. I made the determination to use what God had placed on the inside of me to help others, to encourage them and build them up, to mentor them and lead them, to help them discover what God has placed on the inside of them, and to affirm their gifting and their talents and their abilities, their skills. You see, there's a lot of things the world needs today. Most importantly, the world needs the Lord. But the world will only see Him if you decide to make His glory known through your giftings by God's grace. Now I know you're probably asking yourself, so then how do I discover what God has put on the inside of me? And how do I build this determination? Well, I'm glad you asked. One thing that God, I like to say it this way, He downloaded to me what I call Jonno's life formula. And you may want to jot these things down. And there's 5 components of Jonno's life formula. It goes like this. What can be identified can be defined. What can be defined can be understood. What can be understood can be exercised in wisdom. And when you walk in wisdom, you gain or become an authority. Did you get those? I'll share them again in a couple of moments here. I discovered this life formula. This is how it all went down. I took my youngest daughter to her friend's birthday party. Armand was turning 9 years old. And instead of wanting like a petting zoo or bounce houses, or a clown that could do magic and make the animal balloons and all that, he didn't want any of those things. Instead, Armand wanted the reptile man. And so the reptile man, he pulls up in his vehicle and he starts unloading his entire setup. And the reptile man, he had his table and he had his display cases, and they were clear display cases. And then he starts bringing out these other containers and taking the contents of the containers out and putting them into the clear display cases. And of course, you can imagine chaos and mayhem starts to break loose. All the kids, the 8 and 9-year-old kids, they're screaming and they're running all around. And the kids, they're clawing at their parents, screaming, and it's mayhem. You get the picture. And to be honest, some of the parents were even frightened and uneasy. Me too, I'll be honest. So the reptile man, he continued his setup, and at one point he said this. He made the determination to make sure that he could go ahead with his regularly scheduled program. And he spoke very firmly and directly to the children. He said this. He says, hey, the animals do not like screaming, so you have to be calm. And it was as if the Lord spoke, because these kids it was like, peace, be still. And the kids, they kind of settled down. Of course, they were still a little anxious because, there's some animals over here that they were not, they weren't their little puppy dog and little kitty cat. These were some other animals. And so this is what the reptile man, this is what he did. He first gave them identities. This is Bob, the boa constrictor. This is Larry, the monitor lizard. And I'm making up the names because I don't remember the names. And so on. So he brought out all the animals and he named them and he gave them identities. He went on and he gave them definitions. And he said this. He says, children, you are not on the animals' menus. So they're not going to bite you. They're not going to want to attack you so long as they don't feel threatened. And there was an ease that kind of overcame all of the kids. And that definition, it led to an understanding of the animals. And then the reptile had a couple of the parents come up and handle some of the animals. And then he actually had Armand come up and handle a boa constrictor. And before long, Armand, he starts petting, and the reptile man, he's coaching Armand. Yeah, just pet him like this. And it went well. This understanding, it led to the children being able to approach the table with some wisdom. How about that? And the other children came up and they started picking up the animals. And before too long, they're petting them. And some of them, they're kissing the animals, kissing snakes and lizards. And yeah. But this wisdom allowed them and enabled them to take authority over the animals. This determination to have an enjoyable time where the kids could learn something and not be so frightened of these animals. That determination, it was only produced through a process. You see, grace also unfolds and reveals steps. Identify, define, understand, gain wisdom, be in authority. Walk through these steps with a determination in your heart and with clarity in your mind to come out on the other side more refined, more defined, and without being bitten by snakes. With God, He gives grace to accomplish much, so much more than we could accomplish in and of ourselves. I like saying it this way: when you choose to step in grace, grace steps in. So let me encourage you today. By grace, become everything God has created you to be. Make the determination, the decision, the judgment call in your heart and in your mind to embrace God's grace to do the greater things He has called you to do. And remember this: God's grace is sufficient. His power works in you and is at its absolute best when you are meek and humble, yet determined.